Hi, welcome back to my top tips video again. So this one I wanted to talk to you about your pre-reading. I actually think pre-reading is a really good idea, and I've had some great success with this as well actually, and amazing feedback from my learners. So the reason why I kind of wanted to bring this up, and it doesn't matter how you go about doing it, it doesn't have to be really fancy. You can email your students a section of your manual that you want them to pre-read beforehand. It doesn't have to be the whole thing, but maybe a section of the manual you want them to pre-read before. It can go to something like Dropbox, it could go into something like Google Drive, or you can just email it to them as well if you've got the time or you've got a small number of students you're working with as well. So I would recommend splitting your manual so you save something for later as well, otherwise I might read too far ahead and get too confused. But the idea of pre-reading is to introduce the learning, introduce the subject to them quite quickly and before they come to you, which means they can do a little bit more hands-on actually when they come on site. And that's the main thing really, is about making sure that they get a little bit more out of on-site learning. It's more enhanced, it's more like hands-on. My students pre-read, and then when they come in, I see them for about half an hour, so we go through some kind of checks, check up on their learning, and we get straight into the practical side of the theory and straight onto the practical. So usually within about 30 minutes, maybe an hour, they're straight on the practical, even if they've never seen me before, because they've done their pre-reading as well beforehand and I've checked on that learning. The benefits of this gives them a really good basic understanding. It makes them ask the right questions when they come onto their course, and it also means they're not overwhelmed as well. So particularly if it's a new subject area, it's really good for them to kind of layer that learning as well. And when they come in and you're spending 3 or 4 hours maybe doing theory and then you've got the practical, they're exhausted by the time they get to the practical, and they really do absorb very little. The other thing as well is it gives you more time to do practical, which means you might be able to get an extra 1 or 2 bodies in for them to work on while they're on site with you, which helps to consolidate that learning more, rather than just doing a little bit of theory and then doing one thing, because you've pretty much run out of time for the rest of the day depending on the treatment as well. So it is a really good idea to do something like that, and I've had some really good feedback for things like that as well. So it's worth doing, and just think most of us are quite independent as well. If you've been a therapist for a long time or a hairdresser for a long time, you know, they can read up on contraindications, they can read up on some of the aftercare and understand quite a large proportion of it. They can refresh on their anatomy and physiology for the appropriate areas you're working on as well. So it's really quite good. It gives them a little bit more independence. What I have to say is I do for my reading is my students actually pay me for their pre-reading. It comes off of the total course fee. They pay me for their reading. So it gives them that commitment as well. It gives them that financial commitment that they've paid for that part of it, even though it's technically part of their course. I see it as my deposit, but it's technically part of that coursework. But because they've paid for it, they get on and they do it. It doesn't have to be something fancy. I do have mine on a learning platform, but it doesn't have to be. You can literally, like I said, just email it out and just split your manual up like I have done. But I find having a little bit of payment to that just gives them a little bit more commitment. I've been on courses myself where I've been asked to pre-read something and I haven't had to pay for the pre-reading, and I've done it the night before. And that's not always the best way to go about it, whereas I make mine do it at least 2 weeks before they come onto their course, and it gives them a chance to ask questions on something as well. Sometimes they might pre-anticipate something we're going to learn. I'll say, don't worry, we're going to come to that later, but I do want them to have a basic level, a basic foundation of knowledge so that I can build upon that when I see them, and it just makes the learning so much better. And the reviews I've had from this have been amazing actually. I've had some really good testimonials from this, and just, you know, even therapists that have been working for a long time just said it's just been so much more relaxed when they've come on the course. It's less stressful. They feel like they know a lot already, which has been great. They've come to me with great questions as well, which I love. And I like to have really well thought out questions. Whereas usually you might get to the end of the day and you ask them if they've got any questions and they're just so overwhelmed they can't think, and then you end up spending the next 2 or 3 days maybe going over a couple of bits and pieces that maybe kind of slipped through the net that they didn't quite kind of capture, or they wrote down incorrectly or something like that. It just gives you that little bit more time, and it also gives me, like I said, that little bit more time just to give them that extra kind of client to work on, and that has worked amazingly well because we can do one that's guided together and then they can maybe do 1 or 2 afterwards solo, which means I can kind of let them fly a little bit more, and then I can take a step back and go into more of an assessing mode as well to see what they have taken on board and what needs a bit more work for them. So let me know how you get on with the pre-reading side of things. If you need any more guidance on that, you know where to find me.